join. I'm
Okay.
trying to join.
Okay,
If you made me co-host.
yeah. Should I admit everybody now?
No,
Still wait.
we're running a little late on the ops meeting.
Okay,
I'll let everybody in as soon as we have the forum.
okay.
Looks like we have a quorum.
Good.
You're ready to go.
Okay. The afternoon will call the meeting to order at 1:37 p.m. To begin, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Alexander,
Present.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Flick, present. Commissioner Lund,
Present.
Commissioner Sieg,
Here.
Commissioner Stewart, and Commissioner Wittry.
Present.
First, we'll go for the approval of the February 22nd meeting minutes. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 22nd, 2022 meeting minutes.
For a second.
I'll make a motion to second.
Commissioner Wittry made a motion for approval of the February 22nd meeting minutes, seconded by Commissioner Alexander. If there's no comments, I'll call for approval. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Fleck, yes, Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wittry.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now we'll go through the special public hearing rules. The order of business at the hearing shall be as follows: call to order and roll call with recording of members present, approval of minutes, reading of the hearing rules, presentation of docket, which includes the staff presentation, applicant presentation, and questions from members. Then we'll recess for 30 minutes, followed by the consideration of dockets, including the public comment, rebuttal by the applicant, questions from members, voting, and then finally adjournment. The order of business for each docket shall be as follows: presentation by the City Planning Commission staff, presentation by the applicant or their representative. The applicant or applicant may appear on their behalf or be represented by a duly authorized agent. Only one representative may speak on behalf of a request and must pre-register with the staff of the City Planning Commission. Other representatives or speakers may sign up to provide comments during the public comment portion of the meeting. The applicant shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Questions from members. The members have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or the applicant. The commission shall take a 30-minute recess to allow members of the public to comment. Public comment rules: only one written public comment will be allowed. Live public comment will not be allowed. No member of the public may submit more than one written comment per agenda item. The public comment form will be made available at the start of the meeting and will close at the end of the 30-minute recess. Public comments must be submitted electronically on the form provided by the City Planning Commission. Any comment missing this information will not be read aloud. Each submission must contain the commenter's first and last name, the commenter's address, whether the commenter is being paid in connection with his or her comments, and the agenda item. Reading of the public comments: a moderator will read into the record all comments pertaining to that item that have been submitted in accordance with these rules. Comments will be read aloud in a normal speaking voice. The moderator will discontinue reading a comment once it exceeds 2 minutes. Rebuttal by the applicant: following their public comment period, if there's opposition to the authorized representative of the application, if there's opposition, the authorized representative of the application is allowed a rebuttal not to exceed 2 minutes. Following the public comment and rebuttal, the members have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or the applicant. Voting: making a motion. The member making a motion shall clearly state their name when making a motion. For example, I, Commissioner Fleck, move to approve, deny the request. Seconding the motion, the member seconding the motion shall clearly state their name when seconding the motion. For example, I, Commissioner Fleck, second the motion made by Commissioner Fleck. The chair will restate the motion, confirming who made and who seconded the motion. The chair will request a verbal vote from each member by roll call. Each member will indicate yay to vote in support of the motion or nay to vote in opposition. And now we'll start with our first docket item, which will be zoning docket 00622.
Zoning docket 00622 is a request for a conditional use to permit a community center in an SRS suburban single family residential district, an HUC historic urban corridor use restriction overlay district, and an EC enhancement corridor design overlay district. The applicants are proposing a 6,812 square foot building with a gym, kitchen facilities, and office space on the ground floor. This application went to the February 8th public hearing and received a deferral to incorporate staff recommended provisos into the proposed design and give the applicants an opportunity to request any needed variances. The applicants have submitted updated site and elevation plans that incorporate some of the recommended provisos. The updated submittal shows the building closer to Legion Fields Avenue with parking in the rear of the site with a curb cut and vehicular access along Stephen Girard Street. The applicants have requested a variance for their proposed rear yard setback. The setback is required to measure 20 feet and the applicants are proposing a 5-foot rear yard setback. Staff is still supportive of the overall proposed use and updated site and elevation plans do address many of the site deficiencies. However, as staff has recommended denial of the requested variance of Article 13.3A1, Table 13-2 rear yard setback, the site will still need redesign, and staff recommended provisos should still remain. Therefore, staff recommends approval subject to 11 provisos.
Thank you. Just before we get to the applicant, the document that I have says the staff recommends deferral for this meeting.
You have to scroll down. It was to defer it to this meeting and further down, page 28.
I see.
Yeah, sorry, we have like a further consideration. So we shared the old report and then at the bottom.
Got it. Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Yes, Daniel Parrish.
I'm sorry, could you speak up, please?
Daniel Parrish.
Daniel, could you please state your address and you'll have 2 minutes, please?
My address is 400 North St. Paul Street, Dallas, Texas. And what else did you ask me to state?
You'll just have 2 minutes for a presentation if you have
Okay.
anything you'd like to say.
Yes. So this is our revised site. We've revised it. I think this is the 3rd time after DACA because there was actually a mirrored image where the parking was along Elysian Fields Avenue and the building was in the back. But then after going through the process, we definitely have president staff recommendations and reverse the building and push the building to the street, more toward the front of the street. And we are definitely trying to meet all the staff recommendations. I think the hardest part is that rear yard setback. I know we're close to the funeral, the graveyard behind us. But I think beyond that, we're open to all the staff recommendations. This is a community center that the owner is trying to do to help better serve the community. And we're just trying to do what we can to meet all those site requirements. I think that was just our hardest one to achieve. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Are there any questions of the commission for staff or the applicant? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next zoning docket, 01522.
Zoning docket 1522 is a request for a conditional use to permit a hotel over 10,000 square feet. The site is located at 1407 through 1411 Decatur Street and 500 to 504 Frenchman Street at the corner of Frenchman and Decatur in the Marigny neighborhood in HMC2 district. The site is currently developed with a Greek Revival building and it's currently vacant. It historically operated with commercial uses on the ground floor and residential uses on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The applicant proposes to renovate the existing site and to construct a rear addition and penthouse level. So this request would necessitate a variance from the provisions of Article 10, Section 10.3.A, Table 2, to permit a floor area ratio of 2.6 instead of the required 2.2 in HMC2 districts. So based on the staff's analysis, the staff believes that the request does not meet all of the 9 criteria of the standards for variances of Article 4, Section 4.6.f. So to ensure the applicant complies with the 4 requirement, the staff recommends an additional proviso that's indicated in the report. And so the site has a lot area of 11,456 square feet and historically operated over 10,000 square feet. So the proposal would add an additional 1,058 square feet to the site. The applicant is also proposing to increase the number of suites on the second and third floors from a fourth floor penthouse with 9 units, which will equal 43 units in total. So while the staff believes this is an increase in overall intensity, the request would positively impact the site and surrounding properties. Therefore, the staff recommends a modified approval of zoning docket 1522, subject to 8 provisos.
Thank you. Is there an applicant or an applicant's representative on the call?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Sherman on behalf of the applicant.
Hi, Mr. Sherman. Please state your address in 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Mike Sherman, 800 Barone Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Thank you for allowing me to appear on behalf of the applicant. We are respectfully requesting one more deferral here. First, want to thank staff for the recommendation for approval on the hotel conditional use. That's the main ask. There's a series of 3 really important technical issues that I think we need to work with staff and safety and permits on before it's ripe for the commission's consideration. We are really pleased to have just received SHPO recommendation for approval on the 4th floor penthouse. One of the issues before the commission is staff is recommending we meet 7 of the 9 criteria for a variance. On the other 2, we've gathered data on each of the buildings on the block, working with the assessor and safety and permits. We'd like to submit that for staff review this week. Secondly, because there's SHPO review, NPS review, and HDLC review, the securing of variances becomes really important to make sure the same project is being approved by all. They're all working simultaneously. I think if we could have just a 2-week deferral, respectfully, we can make sure that when this is ripe for the commission's consideration, everything is before you. I will also note in our application, there were 2 additional variances requested: parking and permeable open space. City planning staff has indicated we're grandfathered. Safety and permits may not agree with that and think we need a variance. I'd just like to make sure we get safety and permits and city planning on the same page, that if a variance is needed, we can respectfully request one.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Staff, is this application on deadline?
Madam Chair, were you talking to me?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Is this application on deadline? We're requesting a 2-week deferral. Just want to make sure that we're okay on that end.
The deadline is April 9th.
Great. So we can defer for our next meeting, which is March something. Correct, Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
March 22nd.
Thank you.
Great. Are there any questions for the applicant or staff before we move on?
Yes, as Commissioner Lund, so for staff. So when there is a concern that, I think it's the parking that has been grandfathered request, but a concern that safety and permits may differ, what is the procedure to reconcile that?
So we're waiting for safety and permits to make a final determination on how many spots are indeed grandfathered. And like the applicant said, if safety and permits determines that they aren't grandfathered the total amount of spaces, they wouldn't need that additional variance.
Okay, so you're just waiting for their determination. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to zoning docket 1622.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This one, the staff is requesting deferral to March 22nd, but I'll just explain what it is briefly. As you know, in 2015, the current comprehensive zoning ordinance was adopted. And since that time, City Planning Commission staff have kept a running list of minor issues or inconsistencies with the text. Staff formed working groups to propose revised text that resolve the issues, consulted with the law department and safety and permits department as necessary. And in 2021, the staff approached the city council to request the introduction of a motion for the consideration of these over 200 individual minor amendments to the CZO. Staff met with the staff of most of or all of the council offices in 2021 in 3 virtual meetings lasting about 2 hours each. And on December 16th, 2021, the council approved the motion for consideration. And these are all amendments that staff believes are non-controversial or not too complicated that they should be handled individually. So the staff refers to this proposal as the omnibus minor CZO amendments. You might hear it referred to like that in the future. But so the staff recommends deferral to March 22nd.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the commission? Okay, hearing none, we'll just defer the next meeting. The next item is property disposition 00222.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This property disposition 222 consideration the disposition of immovable property consisting of a public walkway on Square 14, John Tilly Woods in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by Mirabeau Avenue, Metropolitan, and Kendall Drives. An adjacent lot bears the municipal address of 4800 Metropolitan Drive. The walkway is approximately 5 feet in width by 100 feet in length, running between Metropolitan and Kendall Drives through the middle of the square. Property has been fenced in with opaque materials by adjacent neighbors without city authorization. A May 2019 Google Street View image shows the walkway unfenced and in good to fair condition. So that is the image on your left, and the image on the right was taken by CPC staff. The walkway is part of the original design and system of mid-block walkways to improve walkability and pedestrian and bicycle access. The walkways provide a convenient shortcut through the middle of blocks that are approximately 1,350 feet long. Rather than permanently dispose of this one walkway in the system, a short-term lease would be preferable. The city could also choose to enforce the removal of the unauthorized fencing. Staff recommends denial of property disposition 222. If you could also, Larry, go to the next slide at this point. You have 2 slides for this. This is on your left, an example of one of the other mid-block walkways that has not been fenced in by adjacent property owners. This is the one just in the next block from the subject property, and then on the right, you can see an aerial view of the walkway system. I'm not sure if we have any one acting or speaking on behalf of the application today, but just want to offer that opportunity. It sounds like we do not.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any
Paul,
questions?
yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Paul, is this a 3-block walkway and it's just the portion that's in between Metropolitan and, my eyes aren't that good, that's being asked to be disposed of, or the whole entire walkway?
It's just the one segment between Metropolitan and Kendall, and the other ones would remain intact.
And it is just a 3-block walkway, right?
I think it is at least 4, but there is another one that is partially fenced in.
Only
The one
'cause
that
yeah.
the one that is on the photo on the left is also to the left of the blue arrow that's on the screen.
And so the application is just for this block. The city's application is not for all possible 3 or 4 blocks?
Correct. The city is really responding to the interest of an adjacent property owner in this case. It wasn't the city's idea on its own to sell the property.
Okay, it's just I'm familiar with Pontchartrain Park, and I just don't, I mean, besides the park itself, I don't remember a lot of these walkways in the neighborhood. So, and I looked on Google Maps and it looked like there was only this one. Okay, thank you.
Question, Commissioner Lon, looking for Paul. A denial, recommendation for denial, if passed, would result in enforcement, right?
Well, I can't say that.
It should result in enforcement?
Yeah. I'd recommend either enforcement or a lease to the property owner until such time as the city is ready to enforce it.
Okay, so, but if it's meant to be for pedestrian or bicycles, that this prohibits it. And so I'm a little confused if it was denied, why they would lease it.
Well, they've already fenced it in, so it either needs to be enforced or sold or leased.
Okay, but the recommendation from staff is for denial of the application. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Question. Paul, this, I know we see this in other neighborhoods as well, like in Lake Terrace and Lake Oaks probably. I am, so the city has brought this to us, correct?
Correct.
I'm just, I think we all are kind of puzzled here as to why there's still a fence there. If the city's still, if we haven't disposed of it yet, if it's still city property, why there is still a fence there.
So I think that this is definitely not the only case where a walkway has been fenced in, and you know, I can't really speak to the city's enforcement capabilities, but
No,
yeah,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I guess I just want to ask it just for the viewing public here.
I think maybe, you know, the story is, I think, from the property owners that this is, they're fencing them for their own safety. And, you know, so the city, I guess, was a little reluctant to just refuse to hear that as even a possibility that we might sell it.
Okay.
If I can jump in and respond, I think, you know, the issue is, as city-owned property, is it being maintained, and is it being, and I don't know that that is necessarily the case. So I think there probably is frustration on some of the neighboring property owners that that the lack of maintenance is leading to some safety concerns for them. I think the concern, the issue that we have is that there hasn't really been a dialogue about what the city's overall strategy with respect to these pathways are. And until that happens, we don't want to support anything that could preclude any options that would result from that conversation. So selling it off is always an option. But if we sell it off at this point, other options are precluded, like having some sort of strategy to open them up and utilize them and maintain them as they were really originally intended for. So I think, you know, having that dialogue is really important before permanently disposing of these properties.
And I will add that as I said, the 2019 Google Street View image did show the walkway to be in at least fair condition, if not good. You're about to hear 2 other similar property disposition requests concerning walkways, and they're not all in the same condition. So just warn you ahead of time that you'll have to keep them all straight because they're all in different conditions.
So Bob and Paul, just to clarify, so am I correct that part of the commission staff's reasoning is that a lease, if the city were, so a lease not precluded if the sale were to be denied, and that a lease gives the city more flexibility, perhaps a shorter term, or perhaps building in other provisions that allow it to take the property back and the outback and handle it in the way it was originally intended. Is that part of the staff's reasoning?
Yes, it is, Commissioner. That's correct. And a lease would not have to come back through City Planning Commission. That could be entered into by the Department of Property Management.
Right, as opposed to, as you said, a sale being forever and then the city has no rights anymore. It's gone.
That's right. Once it's sold, we would never be able to get it back.
Right.
I would be concerned with a lease as well, though. I don't understand. It's still giving up the rights here. I mean, I'm not a property lawyer like Mr. Steig, but I mean, effectively, the city would be relinquishing control over this, and also would be preventing its original intended use. And it seems to me that is about, tantamount to a sale.
Right, and I think it's important to keep it in mind whether or not the other segments of the system are open, as is the case here, at least for this block that you see on the left. When you get to the next one, it'll be just a one segment walkway.
Thank
If
you.
in fact, all
Commissioner-
the owners,
Yes.
Commissioner, and if in fact all owners from the 4 block, and that was the intention to sell all of that, would the result of the application be different?
Well, I don't think we can prejudge that.
I will say that, you know, the sentiment that we are feeling is that these are an integral planning component of this subdivision. And the subdivision was laid out and platted and designed with the idea of creating this pedestrian pathway as a way of getting around the neighborhood. And it may be, you know, in these days, it may be idealistic, but I do think that, you know, there are other places that would, you know, kill for the opportunity to be able to have this type of built-in pedestrian network within their community that they could take advantage of. And so I think from our perspective is before considering a solution that precludes any other options, that we take a step back and try to look at this a little more holistically.
If I can comment, Katie, it really relates to more than just adjacent property owners of that block, because people use these lanes to traverse several blocks, or, you know, to get across. Maybe they live 3 blocks to the south and they're trying to get 4 blocks to the north. I grew up in a neighborhood that had these, and as a kid, you use them on your bike. You know, it's safer than riding in the street, and really it was a great aspect of the neighborhood. So it serves the whole neighborhood, not just the immediate property owners that property that abuts the alley.
And as Commissioner Lon, it's also consistent with the master plan and trying to have all the money and effort that's spent on having a more walkable, bikeable city. So it would be going in reverse for us and inconsistent with the master plan. And I don't understand why it's even before us. I don't know why the city council would even have us spend our time looking at this. It's just like tear it down. You put it on land that belongs to the city. It's blocking people's right to walk through public or right of way. Tear it down. That's it.
Here, here. I live in a neighborhood that has rights of way on both sides of my home. And it would be an absolute, I can't even imagine someone trying to fence. It's like fencing in a street. I mean, like we've had those before us too.
Just one clarification is that this request comes from the Department of Property Management, not from City Council.
Not from city, okay.
Oh, okay, correction on that. And why would the Department of Property Management have any idea why they would put this forth?
They're responding to a request from the adjacent property owner.
Any adjacent property owner can make a request of the Department of Property Management for something to come before the Planning Commission that is illegal, that we're supposed to vote on.
They can make the request. The Property Management Department does not have to honor the request, though.
Okay.
So they did exercise some judgment in sending it to us, and they did send it through the Planning Advisory Committee, and other departments didn't have an objection.
Okay, well, I'm putting an objection in for my, as a commissioner. I have an objection. So whoever that needs to go back to, I'd like them to really consider before putting this on our agenda, anything like this again.
Thank
You
you.
know, if they had the ability to make the decision that this is something that should not be considered, I would appreciate them to think longer next time.
We'll pass that on.
Thank you, Commissioner Lon. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to property disposition 00322.
All right, properties disposition 322 is the consideration of the disposition of a movable property consisting of a public walkway bisecting squares 26 and 27 Oak Park subdivision in the 3rd Municipal District. The land runs between St. Bernard Avenue and Bancroft Drive. An adjacent lot bears the municipal address of 5101 Bancroft Drive. The walkway is approximately 5 feet wide by 334 feet long and runs between St. Bernard and Bancroft. 4 residential lots adjoin the walkway. Although the walkway is not in good condition, it is part of the original design of the neighborhood to improve walkability and pedestrian bicycle access. The walkway provides a convenient shortcut through the middle of an approximately 1,450-foot long block between Mirabeau and Fillmore Avenues. The walkway does not connect to other mid-block walkways, but does provide a direct connection to Riviera Drive, Arthur Ashe School, and Oak Park Playground. If the walkway cannot be repaired in the near future, the staff recommends a short-term lease rather than any permanent disposition. The staff recommends denial of property disposition 322. And we do have a adjacent property owner on the meeting for this one, Ms. Judah.
Thank you. Ms. Judah, are you there?
Yes, I am, Madam Commissioner. My name is Sasha Judah. I reside at 5100 St. Bernard Avenue. We brought this up. First of all, I would like to state my husband has lived in this house for 35 years, and this was part of his neighborhood for 35 years. He said back then it was used for garbage trucks to go through, and it was kept in much better condition. Right now, the walkway is immovable. The concrete is every other step you take, your foot gets stuck in it. Me, myself, the neighbor next to me on St. Bernard, and the neighbor on Bancroft, 5101, all take care of it to a certain extent. We kill the weeds, trim the weeds. We're constantly keeping up with the alley. We all three of us have written letters to the city, Miss Ava Monette, stating that our interest is in to purchase the alley. It's just not kept. I have 4 kids. I've lived here for 10 years. I've never seen anybody use that walkway. If you guys were to put a camera there, you wouldn't see anybody use that walkway at all. St. Bernard to me is a busy street. It is not something you walk through. I would say if you were considered as a walkway, it would be maybe justifiable to say St. Bernard to Bancroft, maybe. But to say it's justifiable to walk through St. Bernard, from Bancroft to St. Bernard to crossing St. Bernard all the way down the Riviera, I don't think that's reasonable. It's possible. I just don't think it's like a good thing to say. I live there. I only have one other children in my neighborhood. There's only one other family that has children in my neighborhood. We've never had kids that go to Arthur Ashe. There's no kids. I'm not saying they can't ever be kids that go to Arthur Ashe, but at the moment there's none. If the city refuses the purchase from us, I would like either the short-term lease if possible. If not the short-term lease, I would really appreciate if the city kept up with this property.
Thank you, Ms. Judah. Are there any questions of the applicant or staff?
Madam Chair, just a note, I have an email from Representative Property Management that we could let speak on the next one and or on the rebuttal if you find that to be appropriate.
I have a question, Paul. Is it within their power to decide to maintain these portions of city property rather than bring this before us?
I believe they've stated that this would be the responsibility of the Department of Public Works.
And have they made that request as a department to, since it's been brought to their attention, maybe they should communicate and use their influence, as to help the property owners adjacent who are concerned about the upkeep. Maybe they can help them take on that cause. Has that been any? And certainly I'd love to hear from them if they want to rebut.
Looks like she is going to have to register first. So maybe we could hear from them on rebuttal.
That would be great. Thank you, Paul.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brown, if it's okay if I speak to you 1 second. This is the applicant, if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible for me to ask you a question right now.
Sure, Ms. Judah, I'd love to hear your perspective. Thank you. Just to answer that portion of my question about upkeep.
Yes, ma'am. I heard you speak about the other one, and if you ask my opinion about the other one, I'm not biased at all, but the other one to me is not fair because it is connecting multiple neighborhoods, like neighborhoods that are not on a main street per se, like where kids, like the other gentleman, I can't remember his name, said when he was a child, he would ride his bike through the neighborhood, through the alleyways. I think with St. Bernard and Bancroft, it is just, yes, it could get to Riviera, but we have taken the proper steps and we have asked all 4 neighbors. One neighbor doesn't care about purchasing it, nor does she care about closing it. And the other 3 that are adjacent would love to purchase it. I'm just confused as an applicant, a resident of the city, as to why it's such a big refusal for us to purchase it if it's not being used or upkeep. I think that's my confusion, if that's okay if I ask you that question.
Well, it's not my question to answer, but I certainly appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the commission for staff or the applicant?
That's Commissioner Nolan. I would say I certainly understand that when it's an would be a code violation if it was an individual. So, you know, that there's a responsibility when we put in a public, especially recreational space like that, that it be kept. And if it were, it might be used more. It sounds like the ground of it isn't even either, but certainly there's a fair amount of bike riding that does go on around there, and maybe they just don't use it because of the unsafeness of going through it.
I have a question for the applicant.
Yes, ma'am.
What would your plan be with the other property owners if this was approved?
So the neighbor that is next door to me on St. Bernard, we have mutually agreed if we were to get our portion, we would just split it down the middle and fence it because we're already taking care of it. Remove the concrete and just fence it part of our yard. The neighbor on Bancroft, we actually just redid our fence that's connecting our yards. His idea is the same thing, removing the concrete, putting down grass and including it into his yard. So it's pretty much what we're doing anyways with cutting the weeds, of keeping the alley clear, because the alley is clear 90% of the year. It's just we're doing the work, and if you were to go drive by there right now, you can't walk through it. It is literally a roller coaster. Every piece of concrete is up. It's just, it's immovable. I've lived there for 10 years. It's looked that way. It hasn't changed. So I think, and I mean, for me, I have 4 kids, so I'm using it more for my kids. Like I want a bigger backyard, add it to my space. My neighbors, they do gardening. Their backyard is a full garden. That's what they're gonna use it for. That's why I'm asking. I don't see why it's such a refusal. I think that's where my confusion till this point is coming from, Ms. Woodtree.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions for the applicant or staff?
Hi, this is Ava Monet. I work in property management, and I'm the one who actually submits the request for the walkways. And I've heard everything you guys are saying, but I don't think you're aware of the extent to which we get these requests. I get them at least weekly for something to be done about the walkways. We have known that historically walkway purchases have not gone. A lot of these walkways there have been requests for them to be purchased repeatedly, year after year after year, and they've gone so far, and most of them have stopped and come to an end. But the walkway that you saw originally, the one that was gated off, that was in fair condition. It's an exception, it's not the rule. The vast majority of the walkways, they're unkept. The concrete may be up. Most of them are, there's overgrowth, they're run over, and they pose a health risk and they pose a danger, especially right now. People are saying that people use them as a way to run away from different, let's just say the neighborhoods that they're in aren't all the same. And they've posed a safety risk as well as a health risk. And I hear what you're saying. And I think maybe at one point there was an intention for these walkways, but it's absolutely not for the vast majority of them, at least the ones that I get. They're not being utilized that way, because I'm the one that has to speak to the people like Ms. Suja and all of her neighbors and the people who call from these neighborhoods repeatedly about the lack of maintenance and the lack of the city not doing anything about the maintenance or the upkeep of the walkways. If these people had an option besides purchasing them, because I'm pretty sure that her or her neighbors don't want to spend money to purchase a walkway that's not being maintained, but they're seeing that as their last option. Because it is posing a health and safety risk in a lot of these situations. So that's why we referred it on. We have spoken with code enforcement in some circumstances about the maintenance of some of the walkways. We cannot, I can't make code enforcement or public works or whoever is over the maintenance of the walkways, keep them in good condition. That's, there's only so much I can do. I can request that. But I think there may be some issues as far as staffing and maybe funding as well. I can't speak to that. But I know there's 5 that we have. I think we sent Paul 3 in one day. And for a lot of the time, and that's 2 that we held back because the walkways were in pretty decent condition. So I think with the first one, the people have tried so long to get something done about the walkway. Maybe they just got tired of waiting and took the situation into their own hands. Not saying that that's something that they should have done, but I guess once you're the person who's actually in that situation and people are running through your walkway or there's rats in your walkway, you have to come to a point where it's like, well, what do we do?
Thank you, Ms. Monet. Are there any questions, Ms. Monet, from the commission?
Commissioner Lon, Ms. Monet, yes, so you are with property management, property disposition?
Property management, yes, ma'am.
So that it'd be logical that they would call you, assuming that, or be in touch with you, assuming that property management would be responsible for the maintenance, correct? But you're not.
No, property management is not responsible for the city to dispose of city-owned property. We have to go through property management. That's the way that they get to me.
Yeah.
But once they come to me, they've already gone through code enforcement. They've already called and complained. And I guess they haven't gotten the response that they wanted to. So it's like, well, let me just buy it myself.
All right. So I have a question for the speaker. So I guess through the discussion, we found out that Department of Public Works is responsible for this alleyway. Do we know if any utilities or any other infrastructure from the city may be imposed within these walkways?
There is not.
Right. We established all of that through the Planning Advisory Committee meetings. Some of them have been denied outright, I think, if I'm not incorrect, because of that aspect. But the ones that don't have any utilities or anything like that are the ones that have moved to this point.
Ms. Monet, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to add, comment to the speaker. Ms. Monet, thank you for those comments because I think they help us understand how this got to us and that if the walkways were being maintained and were serving the purpose that they were designed for, maybe this wouldn't be before us. And obviously, maybe my comment about riding bikes through these walkways recalls a different time when you're telling us that that's not exactly what these walkways are being used for. I wanted to ask you, do you see any difference between the 2 applications that we've seen? The one right now, a 00322, we've heard a description that the walkway is kind of a roller coaster, concrete's terrible, etc. The other one looked in pretty decent shape and it lasted for longer than a block. Do you see any difference between those 2? I mean, from your perspective, which you articulated really effectively to us?
Thank you. If memory serves, because there's 2 more that I'm working on right now. Some of them, I think there's 2 different complaints. The first one, I think they were more so concerned about the crime issue. I think if I remember, I'm pretty sure the issue with that particular applicant, it wasn't with the condition of the walkway, more so it allowed for what they felt was easy escape out of the neighborhood if something were to occur. I think they may have had some crime issues that they felt the walkway was contributing to. For the second one, with Ms. Souza, I think hers is a combination of both. I think that is different. The walkway, the condition that the walkway is in is very different from the first one. And secondly, I think crime was also an issue with her as well. I don't want to speak for her. I think she's here, but I did speak with her at length. But also the condition, like a lot of these, you can't ride a bike through them, even if you wanted to. I think her issue was twofold. So I think there is a slight difference between the first walkway and the second one.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. You have better knowledge of this than we do, and I think that we benefit from hearing what your comments.
I have
Well,
a
Paul-
question for Ms.
I do too.
Oh,
Commissioner
I'm sorry,
Witry?
Katie, go ahead. I'll wait.
Oh, sorry.
I just to follow up on that, but there is a difference, right? That the property disposition that we're talking about now is just one in between St. Bernard and Bancroft. And the other one, I know that it's in between two streets, but it's really a 4-block alleyway. Is that correct?
I think so. I think that alleyway crosses multiple blocks,
Right.
whereas this one, it goes across that one. I think you're absolutely right with that. Yes.
Okay, I
If
just wanted,
I
since we were
could-
talking about the differences. Yes, Paul.
If I could also respond, that is correct that this one is only 1 block long, but it does provide a link to Riviera Drive. If you go a little bit further than what you can see on the right-hand side there, that there's Arthur Ashe School and a Oak Park, I think. So the ideal situation would be for this to be in good condition.
And that-
Kelly, do you have something?
Yeah, I do. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Manette for joining us. I appreciate it. We've sort of, I think, approached this as I have as planners, seeing the original and intended use as being a good one. And it's just a real shame that that it's come to this, where that for whatever reason, whether it's pandemic reasons, budget reasons, or whatever, Public Works has not done its job in maintaining them for their intended use. I think they can only enhance a neighborhood. I see a lot of these working well in communities, not only in my neighborhood, but in adjacent neighborhoods. And it is absolutely, I think, a treasure to have these, and only a treasure if they work. And so thank you for joining us. And
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions from the commission?
I wish that the Department of Public Works had someone here to speak with us, and we have zero information in terms of their response to this, but it seems to be a citywide, or at least parts of the city wide problem. So to deal with it street by street, issue by issue is going to be both exhausting and absolutely ridiculous. It needs to be addressed on a larger scale.
I agree, Commissioner One. It also reminds me of although a different scenario, almost of a spot zoning, where something's supposed to be put in place and follows the master plan, and we're now having to respond on a case-by-case basis because of lack of upkeep. Something to think about. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Property disposition 00422.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Property disposition 422 is the consideration of disposition of immovable property consisting of a public walkway on Square G, LaCrat Tract in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by Tilbury Road, Forum Boulevard, and Beekman Road. Adjacent lot bears the municipal address of 14550 Tilbury Road. The walkway is approximately 5 feet wide by 180 feet long and runs between Tilbury and Beekman Roads. 4 residential lots adjoin the walkway. The walkway is part of the original design of mid-block walkways in the neighborhood to improve walkability and pedestrian and bicycle access. This particular line of walkways appears designed to provide a direct route to a large wooded area in the center of the neighborhood owned by the Property Owners Association. Staff recommends denial of property disposition 422. And on I think it was the Tilbury Road was under construction at the time. So that is the explanation for the cones you see on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it shows with the blue arrow the segment that would be disposed of. And you can sort of see as you go up to the left and top, there's another walkway up to Duane Road, and then a walkway that would go to a large wooded area. I did see that it looked like the other segments were fenced in, but fenced with a gate that could be closed, and which may or may not be locked at times.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Do we know?
Well,
if there-
go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Do we know, do we have any comments from the Property Owners Association about, since this series of walkways seems to lead to the wooded area you said was maintained by them?
Well, I don't know that there's much maintenance on the large wooded area. It's owned by them, and it is heavily wooded. So I'm not sure that it requires maintenance because it is that wooded.
Right. But have we heard from them?
We've not heard from them.
Association?
No, we have not heard from them. We do send out public notices for these, but maybe Ms. Ava could comment on it. You still with us, Ava?
I'm so sorry. I was trying to unmute myself. I have not heard from anyone at the Properties Owners Association, but this particular property owner, Chanel Lofton, she is very motivated to get this one closed off and purchased. I think hers was also, this particular walkway is not in as much disrepair as the Bancroft one, but it is in more disrepair than the original one. And I think they have on the other side, they cut it off or blocked it off a while ago. I think this one has been blocked off since the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's blocked off with a fence, but rather a gate.
Like a gate, yeah,
cases.
just
Yeah.
a gate. Mhm.
That could be opened.
Right. Mhm.
But they may have it locked.
But to answer your question, I haven't heard anything from the Property Owners Association.
Okay, but as Commissioner Lana would seem, we would need to hear from them. I mean, this is part of the original design and it goes to a park that the POA is responsible for. And, we don't know. So the city was responsible for these easements in the middle of their development that led to the park that they manage. And, we don't even have enough information. Although I'm assuming that this is city property, correct?
Yes.
So it was developed with the city owning these access ways.
Yes, yeah, you're seeing it because it's city property.
Right, okay.
Commissioner Stewart, did you have something?
I'm okay, Madam Chair, I'm fine.
Are there any other comments or questions from the commission?
I'm going to ask my same question. This one is just that one parcel in between, but this is a 2-block alleyway.
It would be 3 blocks if you count
Okay.
the one between Duane Road and the large wooded area.
Okay, but they're only asking for where the blue arrow is.
Correct.
Okay, it helps me with my decision-making process, so I appreciate that.
But the request affects anybody who'd want to use it, correct? It blocks access.
Certainly.
Any other questions or comments?
I would say the only difference I think between this one, if you look at the walkway between where it lies between Beekman and Tilbury, that Beekman Road is a much shorter block than where it lies between Tilbury and I don't know if that's Dewan or Duane. You can see where that street is. The streets go out, they fan out. So it's the same walkway, but the difference in which it bisects the street is considerably, it's a considerable difference between the portion of the walkway that she's requesting and the portion of the walkway that second or third block that goes to the wooded area. Those are much longer blocks than the portion that she's requesting. I don't know if that matters or not. Just wanted to point it out.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Are there any other questions or comments from the commission? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to property disposition 00522.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the consideration of the disposition of a movable property consisting of the Lasat Place right-of-way between Gallier Street and Alvar Street, excluding the intersections with Congress, Independence, and Pauline Streets. The Lasat Place right-of-way is approximately 49 feet long and 49 feet in width and 873 feet in length, not counting the intersections with Congress, Independence, and Pauline Streets. Street is currently closed except for the block between Gallier and Congress, and the entire undeveloped portion of the Florida housing site is fenced in. This disposition would positively impact the adjacent properties through the development of a walkway and linear park. The affordable housing development will continue to have access through the site on multiple streets and connects with the newly reconstructed Florida Avenue. Staff recommends approval of property disposition 522, subject to 3 provisos. And we do have a representative of the Hano's developer on the line.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua Haston with LDG Multifamily. We're an affordable housing and workforce housing developer. And a couple of years ago, we partnered with the Housing Authority of New Orleans to reposition and redevelop this property and keep it permanently affordable for the community for the long term. And as a part of our community engagement through this process, it quickly became apparent that there was a lack of good green space in the area. And so it became a part of our design plan and communicating with the community that they would really love to see a greenway come through the area, as well as abundant green space as it gets redeveloped. And so this just transpired as through our community engagement. I know the community would love to see it. And we hope for your approval so we can move forward with our design advisory committee to help get this project permitted and financed and bring about some high quality affordable housing and workforce housing for the community, as well as this great green space. And it's with this entire development, it's a total of 308 units composed of seniors and family units, as well as some townhomes as well. So we're really trying to create a really great positive environment that allows everyone to age in place and take part in the resurgence of this community as it gets redeveloped. And so with that, I just ask for your approval so we can continue moving forward with our permitting and financing process. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Haston. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Commissioner Lund, yes. The maintenance, could you talk to us about the maintenance, and are there agreements in place long-term?
Great question. So with these properties, we'll be land leasing it or ground leasing it from the Housing Authority, and we will be maintaining it long-term through this partnership that we have with the Housing Authority. So yes, it will be maintained long-term. And then we're already budgeting for that in our financing packages.
Okay, thank you. Does the city require you to have that in place, those agreements in place?
That is a great question. I don't know if maybe Ms. Monet can speak to that, but we have had extensive conversations with Jennifer Kretschmann in her office to make sure that we are abiding by city code and in terms of the actual disposal of this property.
Did you say Jennifer Kretschmann?
Kretschmann. I'm sorry, I'm butchering her last name. That's my fault.
All right, I'll try. So my concern is because how great plans for open space end up like the alleys we just looked at, because there was no plan for who's responsible for the maintenance, and no one takes it on as the responsibility, or they neglect it because no one's holding them to it. So I just think it's critical, and I'm not sure the city is upfront requiring it, and I'd like to find out more about that. And that I'd like to ask staff, is there a way that we could find out more about that?
So if the city were to dispose of it, it would then be the responsibility of the new property owner, which would be Hano, most likely. So it would fall to Hano to be responsible for the maintenance of the walkway.
Right, but as part of their application to purchase the property from the city, do you happen to know if there's a check, if the city says, show us your long-term maintenance plan?
I don't know. I can check during the recess though.
Thanks, Paul.
So, Ms. Lund, thank you for your question. Well, what I can say is that what we didn't previously mention is this was prior to the city owning it. Hano did own it back in the early 2000s, and they disposed of it or traded it with the city. And so we're asking to grab it back so we can incorporate it into development and maintain it long term. Because similar to the other, I guess, concerns of the other items on this agenda, they haven't been maintained. And so that was a major concern when we were having our community engagement, that the residents in the surrounding community wanted it maintained. And so that is wholeheartedly our intention, as well as if there is development on it, and it's, I mean, the Housing Authority is a long-term institution. And so we're going to make sure that as the developer, we are budgeting for it and we're maintaining it. And I'm sure that Hano is also going to hold our feet to the fire as well, because they want the best outcomes for their community, for their residents, as do we.
Right. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. And I do love the project. And I just was looking to, do we put the assurance in up front by requiring plan?
You know, just to respond a little bit further now about that, is that when the city does dispose of these properties, you know, we're not conditioning them on a particular development plan. So Hano is not held to the plan that you see on the screen on the right. So if they did want to redesign it with no walkway, there, you know, there would still be, that would still be allowed.
All right, then. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. Are there any other comments or questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to make note for the record that when this matter comes up for vote, I will be recusing myself.
Thank you, Commissioner Alexander. Are there any other questions, comments?
Quick question. I know that there was in one of the prior disposition reports, it was brought up about a lease, and to Commissioner Lund's question about that not necessarily being used that way once it is disposed of and under new ownership, would there be an option for a lease with a stipulation in the lease for that?
If they did not dispose of the property, if the city did not dispose?
And instead did a long-term lease.
Yes, then I think there would be an option
That could
there.
be a stipulation in the lease. Okay, thank you.
But also just respond to that you know, ultimately the city council is going to be making the decision on the disposition. If the commission were to recommend a stipulation in the sale and the disposition that that be used for a pedestrian pathway, that's certainly a recommendation that the commission can make to the council, and that the council could incorporate into their final approval.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks. Could we also make the recommendation that a written plan be in place for long-term maintenance of all, you know, green areas, all open space areas? Can we also make that recommendation that city council could make part of?
Yeah, I would. I can double check in the break, but I do believe that the City Planning Commission is authorized to make recommendations about conditions that should be that it would recommend be accompanied in the disposition.
Okay, thank you.
So that concludes our presentation of dockets. The other items are for deferral, which we'll discuss after the recess. So I'll be looking for a motion for a deferral, for recess for 30 minutes.
Madam Chair, there's also one item 18 on your agenda. I don't know, maybe you could ask Missy whether or not we need to say anything about that right now.
Missy, do you want to
Yeah. Item 18, we will take up after the break. What happened was the commission voted to approve something without making a motion or a second. And so we need to go back and amend what was approved to add a motion and a second to it. We will not be hearing the docket again because it was already unanimously approved. It's just a procedural. We're going to make a motion in a second and vote again.
All right, thank you. So we're looking for a motion for recess for 30 minutes.
Make a
So moved.
motion for, yeah.
We're rushing to make that motion.
3:15, it's Commissioner Sieg, if you would like to second that.
I will second Commissioner Witry's motion.
Thank you. There's a motion on the table for adjournment for recess, reconvene at 3:15. I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander.
I'll just leave.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Flick. Yes. Commissioner Lund.
Yes.
Commissioner Sieg.
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Great. See you all at 3:15. Paul, are we still working on the public comment?
No, we're done. We actually don't have any.
Okay. I will call this meeting to order. Looks like we have enough for quorum. Commissioner Alexander,
Present.
Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Flick, present.
Brown is here.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Flick, present. Commissioner Lund,
Present.
Commissioner Stieg, Commissioner Stewart,
Present.
thank you. Commissioner Witry.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, up first we have zoning docket 00622.
There's no public comments.
Thank you. And this was for approval. This is the community center. Church space, looking for a motion, right?
Yeah, it's approval subject to 11 provisos. And so the provisos just changed because we denied the requested variance. So we eliminated some of the provisos from the last report just because they changed their plans.
So approval with 11 provisos.
Commissioner Lund, so I move for approval with 11 provisos as recommended by staff for zoning docket 0622.
Commissioner Witry will second.
Thank you. Commissioner Lund made a motion for approval of zoning docket 00622, seconded by Commissioner Witry. Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry,
Yes.
and Commissioner Stieg.
And I just showed up, yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is zoning docket 1522,
No public comments.
and this was requested to be deferred until the March 22nd meeting.
Correct. Request by the applicant.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to defer to March 22nd.
Second by Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you. Commissioner Witry made a motion for deferral for zoning docket 1522 to the March 22nd meeting, seconded by Commissioner Stewart. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Stieg,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next is zoning docket 1622.
This is the request to defer to March 22nd.
Looking for a motion for deferral.
I move that we defer to March, what was the date, 17th?
22nd.
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 Commissioner Lund, I'll
second.
second.
Oh,
Who's that? I heard Commissioner Lund. Commissioner Stewart made a motion for deferral zoning docket 1622 to the March 22nd meeting, seconded by Commissioner Lund. Commissioner discussion, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Witry.
yes.
Motion passes for deferral. First, next is property disposition 00222.
This is the, no public comments. This is the one between Metropolitan and Kendall Streets, the one that was fenced off already by the adjacent property owners. Staff recommended denial.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stieg. I move to accept staff recommendation for denial. For all the reasons that were discussed, I want to again thank the representative of property management and just comment that she seems to be in a really difficult position. She's got all these property owners coming and squawking at her, but it's not her department can't take care of the maintenance or the dealing with the violations and the fences. So she's in a really tough spot. I'm going to comment in advance that I do think this is different than the other one. But for this one, I think that if the walkway was in good shape, the walkway to serve the neighborhood, and is serve the purposes of the master plan, or at least it's in theory. So I do think denial is appropriate here. And in advance, I'll say I think the next one, the one block where we had the lady who appeared, seems to be a different situation to me, but this one seems to warrant denial. So I'll move to accept staff recommendation for denial.
I will second. Brown will second. I'm not sure. I feel the same about the second one, but on this one, I do. So I will second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Sieg made a motion to accept staff recommendation of denial for property disposition 00222, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Is there any discussion?
Just, I'd like to, is this where we would suggest that make a recommendation? At what point would we make a recommendation to City Hall that I would like to make, to have Public Works review the walkways throughout the city and which ones are not being maintained on a regular basis, and whether or not those should be disposed of en masse?
So I can respond to that. I don't think it needs to be part of any motion. I'll take your statement as a direction for me as executive director to have a conversation with the administration about it.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you. There's no discussion. I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Ritchie?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is property disposition 00322.
Yes, this is the one between Bancroft and St. Bernard Avenue. Staff does recommend denial. It is the one that is in worse condition, as Commissioner Steve mentioned.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Commissioner Brown, I'm going to move to accept the staff's recommendation for denial on this one as well. I think that we are stepping into some territory here that might be set precedent, and I worry about that. Just because the condition that the city's neglected it doesn't mean that it's not intended for its original purpose, and with proper maintenance it could enhance a neighborhood that might enjoy the benefits of those rights of ways, which were intended to promote health, safety, and welfare of the community that they were to serve.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Brown.
sadly lost internet and I couldn't hear. Was there a motion?
Yes. Commissioner Brown made a motion.
Motion to deny based on all of the reasons in the staff's report. I think we are in a position here to set some dangerous precedent as far as disposing of city property, and especially when it was originally meant to and could possibly in the future promote health, safety, and welfare in these communities.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. We're looking for a second.
Second, Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart. Commissioner Brown made a motion to approve staff report of denial for property disposition 00322, seconded by Commissioner Stewart. Is there any discussion?
I have a question, Commissioner Lund, for either legal or Rob. Does voting on an item would this same issue present a problem with the legal precedent in the future? Were we to accept, well, this is a motion for denial, but is there a concern for setting a precedent from a legal standpoint if we were to accept one of these and deny one or two of them?
So I can respond, and Missy, I don't know if you want to jump in, but I think as long as the vote or the motion is specific to the merits of the particulars of that case, as distinguished from others, I think you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
May I comment on that? And I totally agree. However, if our concern is that we're going to see more of these and that the city will wash its hands of its obligation to maintain and commit to maintaining communities as the way they were designed, I think that this might encourage more of this. And so that's just my view.
Excuse me, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak.
I'm
This
sorry,
is the
Ms. Judah. Ms. Judah, you're not. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other, anything else up for discussion? I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? I'm voting yes, and I also want to say that I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Brown of not setting this precedent and letting the city either take care of its property or lease the property, but not wholeheartedly removing the original intention and design for these public spaces. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner C?
I'm going to vote no, but I want to at least explain why, because I don't want to set a precedent. I think this, and I think it's unfortunate that the city's letting it go so badly, prompts me to warrant a disposition of it. But I do think they're distinguishable. I don't think my vote is it would be setting a precedent, and basically plan to vote no on most of these, but this seems to be a circumstance where it's impassable and it's in terrible repair, and the likelihood of ever getting repaired seems remote. And I just think it's worth in this particular case. I totally understand Commissioner Brown's concerns. I think they're totally legitimate, but in this particular case, I'm just going to vote voting no.
Thank you, Commissioner Steve. Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
I'm going to vote no too for reasons similar to Commissioner Stieg, but also I feel like this is just a one block where the other ones that we've seen have had multiple blocks, and then I would rather see the owners get together. But since you have 3 out of the 4 owners in agreement, I think this is a shame, and I'm going to also vote no. And I would have had a motion if I hadn't lost internet, but c'est la vie there.
Thank you, Commissioner Witry. So motion, it passes 5 yeas, 2 nays. Yes. Thank you. Next zoning docket, property disposition 00422.
This is the disposition of the walkway between Tilbury and Beekman Streets out in New Orleans East. Staff recommends denial.
Commissioner Lund, I'd like to put forward a motion for denial of the application as recommended by staff for all the reasons we've already discussed.
Second by Brown.
Thank you. Commissioner Lund made a motion to approve staff's recommendation of denial for property disposition 00422, seconded by Commissioner Brown. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. And then next is property disposition 00522.
And this is the disposition of Lawset Street between Gallier and Alvar, excluding the intersections of Congress, Independence, and Pauline. Staff recommends approval subject to 3 provisos.
And this is the one item that I believe, Commissioner Alexander, you're recusing yourself?
Correct.
Thank you. Looking for a motion?
Commissioner Lund, I will recommend approval. I forgot, subject to a certain number of provisos.
3 provisos?
3 provisos as recommended by staff. And this is where I'd also like to state, like a message sent somehow with it or through our executive director, that that in the application for large developments like this that require some kind of maintenance of the open space and the common areas, that there be an agreement in place as part of the development review process. Is that clear? Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Stewart.
Seconded by Commissioner Stewart. Commissioner Lund made a motion for approval as stated in the staff report for property disposition 00522, seconded by Commissioner Stewart. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick? Yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 6 yeas and 1 recusal by Commissioner Alexander. Next up is the following zoning dockets: zoning docket 1822, 1922, 2022, 2122, 2222, 2322, 2422, 2522, and zoning docket 2622 are all set for deferral to the
Can we,
next.
some are the next meetings, some are April 12th, so can we split them up? It's like it's on the screen.
Going too quickly, I'm not looking at the screen. Okay. So zoning docket 1822 through 2022 will be deferred to the March 22nd meeting, and zoning docket 2122 through 2622 will be deferred to the April 12th meeting. So looking for a motion for deferral.
Commissioner Brown will make a motion to defer zoning dockets 1822 through 2022 to the March 22nd meeting, and zoning dockets 2122 through 2622 to the April 12th meeting.
Commissioner Witry will second.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown made a motion for deferral of zoning dockets as stated, seconded by Commissioner Witry. Is there any discussion? Then I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, yes. Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
Commissioner Witry?
Yes.
Motion passes. And our last item of business today is relating to zoning docket 1422, where we're looking for a motion to amend the approval in order to correct a procedural mistake that was made at the last meeting. So we're just looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to amend since I was chair of that meeting and should have caught my mistake. So I'd love a second on that.
Brown will second.
Thank you,
Kelly.
Commissioner Witry made a motion for approval of zoning docket 1423, seconded by Commissioner Brown. There's no discussion. I'll call the question. Commissioner Alexander?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Flick, I was not present for the meeting, so I will not vote on the docket. Commissioner Lund?
Sorry, yes.
Commissioner Steve?
Yes, and didn't notice the mistake when it was made.
Commissioner Stewart?
Yes.
And Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Motion passes. That's it for today. Okay. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn, and I want to thank all of our, well, everybody who's chaired the meetings, in particular the chairs, Commissioner Flick, Commissioner Stewart, I believe, Commissioner Lund, and if I missed somebody, Commissioner Steve, did you chair these virtual meetings. I'm hoping this is our last one, but
Mhm.
y'all have done a really excellent job. And it's very, I don't know that I could have done anything like that. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Commissioner Brown. Appreciate that. Is there a second?
Commissioner Lund will second.
We'll just waive. All in favor for adjournment. Thank you. At 3:38.
Thanks, everybody. 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. See you in 2 weeks. Stay well.